Coming up on Life on Air.
It's got to be organic, and the viewers can really tell if it's something that you're just faking versus something you're being.
Popular Hollywood host coach and casting director Maureen Browne joins me to chat about what TV shows are looking for and how to land a hosting job.
I want to know if you're interviewing somebody that you really are present there and you're listening to them versus just thinking about the next question that you need to ask that's on your list.
Life on Air starts right now. Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Life on Air. My name is Tim Tialdo, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to the podcast for the TV hosting industry. Of course, as always, my job is to connect you with the industry, help you to learn from the experts, and help you to become the best TV personality that you can possibly be. Now, before we jump into chatting with Maureen, just a couple of updates for you. Now, last month on my blog at timtialdo.com, we talked a lot about branding and how that really sets the foundation of your career as you move forward. And this month, as demonstrated by this podcast, is going to really talk about coaching and mentoring, because without a good coach, let's be honest, most of us would probably never get to where we really want to be in our careers. And so go to my website, and if you subscribe to my RSS feed, every day I'm going to be updating you with new and informative material, kind of pertaining to coaches and mentors, finding out, where those coaches are, when some of the events or boot camps or whatever it is that they're having, and just any information that you might need to help you move forward in the TV hosting industry. So with that in mind, I'd like to introduce my guest for today. She is a well-known TV hosting coach and also a casting director. Now, for years, she was actually a casting executive at E! Entertainment and the Style Network, and today she now continues to do that on her own, both privately and with group coaching. And she's also a freelance casting director, which means she's in charge of placing hosts and experts, like many of you want to be, on network shows. So I'm both honored and excited to have Maureen Browne with me today. Maureen, how are you?
Good. How are you, Sam?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic, and I am super thankful that you took the time to fit this into your busy schedule.
Okay, I'm very excited that you've reached out to me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And so, I know your time is valuable, and we've got a lot to talk about, so why don't we go ahead and jump right into this? When I got into the business, I started out in news. I was at Access Hollywood first, and then I went into an on-air career and, kind of worked my way up through the markets. And a lot of people always ask, well, you want to be a host. What exactly is a host? And there's so many different people on TV. So I guess from being a host coach yourself, what would you define as a host?
The way I would explain it is, the host is basically like the liaison between the show and the viewer. So they're the one who's taking the viewer on this journey with them. So whether it's news or whether it's travel or entertainment news, sports, travel, cooking, any of these things, they're really the one who's the conduit between the viewer and the experience.
And in your experience, what type of people are the best hosts? I mean, there's a lot of different types of people that want to be hosts, but which ones tend to be the best that actually make the job?
There's kind of a combination of things. Radio people are usually great hosts, because they know how to fill air. They're people who really know how to work their voice, and they know how to grab people immediately. So they tend to be great hosts. It's like, it's somebody who has a great personality. And, it's funny because I see a lot of people who come through my doors, and they're such introverts. And they're like, I want to host a show. And I'm just sort of like, I can't pull it out of them in class. And I feel like I kind of have a gift to pull things out of people. And so it's like, you really have to go, everyone kind of thinks they're famous, everyone thinks that they should be on TV, but you really have to be able to light up a room. I think I'm going away from the original answer. But I feel like there's people who just, automatically light up a room, and that's definitely helpful because there's something about you that will attract and have the viewers when they're, there's so many options for shows that when they're changing the channels that they are going to stop on you. And it doesn't necessarily mean beauty. It's just there is something about you that, whether it's your smile, whether it's, definitely personality, how you hold yourself, if you're completely authentic and real. These are all things that make for a great host.
Yeah, and I talked about that in one of the chapters, is that one, a big personality always helps. Anytime you're really outgoing, that is great. And then two, if you've grown up and you were always kind of the center of attention in your little social circle or wherever you were, or you love to be on stage, you probably are going to be a pretty good candidate for doing this.
Right, exactly. But then, it's, and I hate to say it, but it's like, sort of, if you're in a small town and you're maybe you don't necessarily know what the talent pool is too, though, because like once you get to a place that's so competitive like New York or Los Angeles, you see that the talent pool is so large, and it's like maybe you were big in your high school or something, but it's got to translate again to the real world and the confidence that goes with it as well.
Being a coach in a very specific niche type industry, I mean, I'm sure you get bombarded with the question all the time, what's the best way for me to get started? How do I get into this? What do you usually answer?
I tell them to really kind of look on TV. It's definitely more than having just a great personality, but I feel like you really have to do your research. And I feel like, it's great because some hosts will come to me and they'll be like, well, I was looking up so-and-so site, and I was reading about so-and-so and how they got started and what they did. And I love when people do their research because there is so much that goes into this. Like, but then when you look at, when you look at YouTube, you can see that people they just sit with a video camera and they're in their bedroom and they're just talking about things that they love. There's sort of like no right or wrong, but, when it comes to doing your research, you look into classes, you want to look at hosting classes, improv classes, writing classes. You have to look into how do I make a reel or what should be on my reel, and photographers and agents and things like that. So there's a lot of research that goes involved into it in on the one hand, but then again, back to the YouTube and people who are just sitting in their room, talking to a camera and finding, I always just tell people that's one of the greatest ways to start. You don't know exactly what kind of host you want to be. You don't really know necessarily what areas you want to focus on. And just sit with your webcam and put yourself on camera and just start talking and just go. And, some people share it, some people put them on the web, and some people just, don't. And they learn to kind of refine their skills and know that they can talk and they are interesting and people want to watch their videos. So I feel like you just have to do something. You really have to. You can do your research, but start being on tape and get feedback from your friends from there as well.
Gotcha. And putting on your casting director hat, I mean, we always are told that your guys are looking for the it factor. I gotta see it. I gotta know it. I just know it when I see it. I mean, is there some things that you're looking for?
Yes, it's personality. I think, personality for sure. But to me, the number one thing is confidence. And, it's that person who can come into a room, and even if they make a mistake on their copy, and they can make a few mistakes, but there is just something about them because they feel comfortable in their own skin. And that's the person who can laugh at themselves. I mean, it's just, they don't take it so seriously. Yes, it's important to them, but they just don't place the same sense of urgency on it. They're confident, and that's really what I respond to.
One of the things that I got into that I think a lot of hosts really honestly aren't very good at is marketing and branding themselves. They're great at being a big personality and knowing what they can do, but they really don't know how to get it out there. Talk about some of the ways that potential or aspiring hosts can brand themselves today to kind of get started.
I think it was Jeff Bezos from Amazon who said, your brand is what people say about you when you leave the room. So I feel like your personality is your brand. Now, that said, people need a little leg in or leg up to get in the door. So having an expertise definitely helps. But, it has to be a true expertise. It can't be just because you were necessarily the dating and relationship person in your college, and you wrote for your school paper or something. That's fine and great, but when it comes to the real world, we want, you to have a certification after your name and know that it's real credible information because the competition out there is so fierce in that kind of in the expert world.
Yeah.
But that said, if you're somebody who, I feel like your brand is also what you're doing if there's no camera on you. So if you're, let's just say, you want to do, if you just love pop culture, maybe just, if you look at someone like Ryan Seacrest, he's not swinging a hammer, he's not cooking, but yet he is a working and very successful host. So I feel like his brand is just being a host and being a personality. And I feel like it kind of goes with Tom Bergeron and Chris Harrison and Jeff Probst. These are all guys that are just personalities. So it's what your brand, I feel like, is what you're so passionate about. It's what you're doing when the cameras aren't rolling. If you're, a foodie and you just want to go around and find out all the interesting foods or travel or something like that, then I feel like that's really, that's organic and that's authentic to you. But people don't realize how much work goes into it. And it's I see with the casting process that I do is that a lot of people now, they want to use celebrities for their shows. And, there's one show I'm working on right now, and it is a huge show. And I'm working for Nigel Lithgow, and, he does huge productions. And the network is ABC, and they're just like, we want a big celebrity to host the show. And it's like, I get it. You know, you want that celebrity name. You know, you kind of look on the side of the bus and you think if you have an unknown there, it's not going to sell the show. If you have a celebrity there, people will want to tune in. But the job itself is so big, and there's so much that goes in behind being a great host, is I think they really don't understand, because it just looks easy, you know.
Yeah.
It just look at Billy Crystal, you know, hosting the Oscars. He makes it look so easy and fun, and then you look at two professionals like James Franco and Anne Hathaway who struggled at it. So it just looks easier than they don't realize what goes on behind it. Your brand is not something that someone gives to you. Like, I hear some of the dumbest, maybe that's not the right word, but I hear brands, it's like, oh no, you're this girl, this is what you are. And you're like, well, I mean, I get some people who are like, yeah, but that's what someone told me my brand is, but that's not really what I like to do, and that's not who I am. So, you know, be careful. Don't let somebody brand you for yourself, because again, like, that's where I feel like you're it. You're the brand. So it's not what somebody wants you to be. Because again, it's got to be organic, and the viewers can really tell if it's something that you're just faking versus something you're being.
Now, I know from experience that first 30 seconds of when you pop in a reel, or, you know, you're looking at auditions, that's it. I mean, that's pretty much it, or it's going in the pile. So what do you want to see in that first 30 seconds?
I really want to see good stand-ups. Like, I have to see, if I'm looking in 30 seconds, I need to see that you know how to interview somebody, that you have a really strong stand-up, and you can really really master reading copy. And I want to see, interviewing somebody doesn't have to be a celebrity, but I want to know that you can listen, and I want to know, because that's huge. I want to know if you're interviewing somebody that you really are present there and you're listening to them versus just thinking about the next question that you need to ask that's on your list. Those are really probably two of the most important things that I want to see in 30 seconds. And again, of course, your personality.
Got it. The traditional question I get a lot is, how do I get noticed by a casting director? And yeah, you can be hanging out in the right places and, you know, maybe coming to your coaching class and shaking hands with you and getting to know you. But maybe what is the best way that I can get noticed, or anybody can get noticed by a casting director out there?
By contacting them. And I feel like, send them, have materials. Send them your materials. And I know that it's really expensive to have like your little press kit with your folder, your resume, your headshots, your reels, and any kind of, social media things that you want to put in there. But I also find that is if somebody sends, like, I think they're great, are those little postcards, those mailer postcards. Mm-hmm. They just literally maybe send that every few months. And it seems few months may be a long time on the host end, but really, like, for us, months can go by so quickly. So you don't want to inundate them and constantly, like, be in their face. But I feel like a friendly reminder, hey, just wanted to keep you in mind, or I hope you'll keep me in mind if you have something coming up. I'm a real fan of your network or show or whatever it is. I just find that to be really helpful. Again, it's networking and going to events and meeting producers and it's easier said than done, but it's like I see all these kids in my class who they are always going to different events, they go to parties, and it's by meeting people and really dropping a line. Again, it's dropping a note, like, and saying, I'm a huge fan of your show. It's the same thing. It's just like, but be nice. And people love it. Like, if you, of course, flatter them, I'm so, I love what you're doing, and I would be so honored to be able to audition for you, or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of people out there that they're hosting right now, maybe their own little show on YouTube, or maybe they're doing some social media stuff, trying to develop a little following. And they're wondering, well, how do I kind of prepare for that next level? This is, kind of the people who have been in the business for a little bit, and they're wanting to take it to, maybe a large market level or a national level, or do something that they're going to be in front of a bigger audience. What do you recommend that those types of people do to kind of prepare themselves for that next level?
Well, if there's somebody who's sitting at home and they're having their own web show and they're talking about, maybe with a friend, and they're talking about pop culture, or, here's what happened last night on The Bachelor, that's great. And again, like, that gives us an idea of who they are naturally. But, I think really having good skills. And also good materials. So if you're doing the show at home, by taking classes, if you're in an area, obviously, where they teach classes. I mean, I get people who fly to me from Australia. I think that's the farthest I've gotten. But I have people who come once a week from the Bay Area. They fly down and they take my Wednesday class, or they drive in from Las Vegas. So it's like, I find that the people who really want it are the ones who are really going to do the work. But by having skills, by taking an improv class, it's not all just about like your hosting skills, but again, it's listening, possibly taking a writing class on how to write news copy. I mean, there's so many, like if you look online, you can get a journalism, like I think it's a digital journalism degree.
Yeah.
So, so if I call you in, like, it would be so impressive to me if I found somebody on YouTube, which I do. I'm always on Google. I'm always on YouTube, and I'm typing in relationship expert. I'm typing in makeup expert or, makeup artist. These are things that I'm always looking for the next person. And if they can not only come to me with the skills that they know what they're doing, but they can also, oh, yeah, sure, no, I'm totally comfortable interviewing somebody and also being interviewed. But if they want to have, by people taking it to the next level, they just know that they bring the extra skills. I know how to produce my own segments. I know how to, again, right, things like that. It just makes it, you just kicked yourself up a notch compared to many of those that are out there.
I have a lot of people who tell me that, it's such a small business. I mean, there's only a few shows out there. I don't even know how I could compete with everybody. And I was doing research the other day, and I think since 2000 alone, there have been over 700 reality shows created. I mean, how many shows are you kind of casting on a monthly basis?
I usually work on one show at a time because it's intense, and so sometimes I'm casting it for 4 or 5 months, and then sometimes I don't work for a couple months or so. And sometimes I just have to turn stuff down. I tend to really cast for bigger. I've just been doing like more network stuff, bigger stuff. So then that said, I can do a couple shows in a week too, depending. So it's not just television, but it's really a ton of web stuff that's out there now.
And do you do a lot of remote casting? And by that I mean, do you let people send in video auditions, or do they always have to be live?
They always have to be live.
Okay. Now let's talk about the auditioning experience, because so many people, it's a nerve-wracking experience. They sweat, they're worried, they're tense, and they're wondering, what is this person thinking of me? And I think a lot of people think you're out to get them, and it's really the opposite. I mean, more than anything, isn't it that you just really want them to be the one?
You're absolutely right. I so want them to be the one, and from what I hear, is I'm kind of rare in the casting world. I mean, not, and please don't say that. I want to toot my own horn. But I'm the one. I guess also because I'm the coach. I really want to see them do well, and so I'm cheering them on in that room. And I'm trying to. If I see something there, I am going to really work with them a couple more times so I can really bring out what it is I'm looking for and what I think that they can deliver. I think a good casting director is somebody who really does kind of convey that it's not about, the quantity and seeing the massive numbers. It's just really trying to make them feel comfortable, and they're going to give you a good read.
Gotcha. Last question I have for you is concerning agents. And some people wonder, how important is it or isn't it to have an agent? And from a casting director standpoint, could you answer that question?
I don't think you necessarily need an agent, and because I know it's so hard to get one, but I feel like you really need to be your own agent. So even if you have one, on the one hand, you still need to be your own agent. So you've got to be that person who's out there and they're marketing themselves. They're out sending the flyers, sending the press kits, updating their Facebooks and things like that, saying, I just shot this video. Just shot this video. Would love to get your feedback. They're building Twitter followers. These are all ways that they can market themselves. And again, this is also how agents find people, is that, they'll look and see somebody online and go, they're not represented. I have a lot of friends who, or not a lot, but I do have some friends who are successful working hosts and who have done it consistently without having an agent. I also just feel like it's being yourself. It's really being yourself. You're being that authentic person. You're being that nice person. I have a saying that I always tell my students, and it's manners cost nothing, but buy everything. And
I love it.
It's the person that I'm going to remember in the audition room is the person who, once again, I mean, obviously that they do a good job, but it's also the person who's really appreciative, takes good direction, and it's just nice.
Well, let me just say, Maureen, this has been a lot of fun and really some valuable information for those listening. And I know you've got to run, but let me just say thanks so much for hanging with me today, and I look forward to hopefully crossing your path in the near future.
Thanks,
Maureen.
Thanks so much, Tim.
Have an awesome day. So hopefully for those of you listening, you got a lot out of what Maureen said, and I highly encourage you, if you have the time, go back and listen through this podcast as many times as you can and grab a pen and a paper and take notes, because guess what? Maureen is at the top of the food chain when it comes to the TV hosting industry. I mean, if you can please her, you're going to be doing some amazing TV work here in the near future. And a reminder about my book coming out later this summer, The TV Host Crash Course, 5 Steps to Help You Become the Next Great TV Personality. In it, we cover 5 things. First, we talk about exactly what a host is, what that means. Then we talk about developing your talent, and that includes mentoring and coaching and people like Maureen. And then we get into, in the middle of the book, marketing and branding. And this is such a huge area that so many people really fail to focus on and look at because it's very important, especially in today's technologically advanced world, to be able to get yourself out there and brand yourself in a very specific way, and we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about the audition process, and I know that can be very embarrassing and nerve-wracking for many of you, so we'll talk about how to get through that. And also getting an agent, or maybe not having an agent, which is best for you and why. So we'll kind of go through that as well. So I look forward to releasing that later this summer. Keep an eye out on my blog, and I'll be keeping you updated with exactly when that's going to be released. So that is the podcast for today. Thanks again to Maureen Browne for taking the time to join me here and for giving so much valuable information to those of you listening. And remember, the only way to predict your future is to create it. Now go out and do it.